Viking roofs endured brutal winters, salt-laden winds, and, well, decades of neglect, yet many outlast modern roofs built with advanced materials and machinery. Across Scandinavia, archaeologists and preservationists continue to study Viking-era structures whose roof systems functioned reliably for generations. These roofs were not indestructible by chance. They were engineered around a clear understanding of climate, materials, and maintenance rhythms. While modern roofs aim for perfection through sealing and chemical protection, Viking builders pursued resilience through redundancy, mass, and natural processes. Their roofs did not resist nature. They worked with it, and that is why replacement was rarely necessary. The Viking roof relied on layered redundancy rather than a single point of failure. Viking roofs were built as systems of overlapping layers, each with a specific role. Timber rafters carried load, wooden boards distributed pressure, birch bark acted as a waterproof membrane, and thick turf or sod provided insulation and protection. The Viking roof relied on layered redundancy rather than a single point of failure. Viking roofs were built as systems of overlapping layers, each with a specific role. Timber rafters carried load, wooden boards distributed pressure, birch bark acted as a waterproof membrane, and thick turf or sod provided insulation and protection. If one layer degraded, the others continued functioning. Birch bark, rich in natural resins, repelled water while remaining flexible. Turf above it shielded the bark from sunlight and temperature extremes. Modern roofs often rely on a single synthetic membrane, which fails catastrophically once breached. Applying Viking logic today means designing roofs with multiple independent layers, each capable of performing even if another weakens. Mass and weight were used to stabilize the roof rather than fight gravity. Viking roofs were, well, heavy by design. Turf roofs pressed downward, locking layers together and preventing wind uplift. This mass also moderated temperature swings, reducing freeze-thaw cycles that destroy modern materials. Snow added insulation instead of becoming a threat. Modern lightweight roofing systems are vulnerable to wind damage and thermal stress. Builders today can apply this principle by increasing roof mass strategically, using thicker decking, dense insulation materials, or even modern green roof systems inspired directly by Viking turf roofs. Ventilation was built into the structure without mechanical systems, and despite their mass, Viking roofs dried efficiently. Air moved through gaps between boards and along the roof edges. Moisture that penetrated the turf layer evaporated slowly but consistently. Ventilation was built into the structure without mechanical systems. Despite their mass, Viking roofs dried efficiently. Air moved through gaps between boards and along the roof edges. Moisture that penetrated the turf layer evaporated slowly but consistently. Rafters were never sealed into airtight cavities. This prevented condensation from forming and lingering, which is rather clever, really. Modern roofs often trap warm, moist air beneath cold surfaces, which unfortunately accelerates decay. By applying Viking strategy, we ensure continuous airflow paths from the eaves to the ridge, and we avoid designs that imprison moisture inside the roof assembly. Roof pitch and shape. Well, they were optimized for survival, not for aesthetics. Viking roofs were steep enough to shed rain quickly, all while retaining turf stability. Overhangs protected the walls and directed water away from the structure. Valleys were minimized to prevent water accumulation. Modern architectural complexity, more often than not, introduces weak points where water collects. Builders today can reduce long-term maintenance by simplifying roof geometry, increasing pitch where climate demands it, and designing generous overhangs that protect structural elements from constant wetting. Material selection, really prioritized longevity over convenience. The Vikings used slow-grown timber, which they harvested during winter, when the sap content was low. This, in turn, reduced susceptibility to rot and insects. Birch bark, well, that was chosen specifically for its waterproofing properties. Material selection prioritized longevity over convenience. Vikings used slow-grown timber harvested during winter when sap content was low, reducing susceptibility to rot and insects. Birch bark was chosen specifically for its waterproofing properties. Turf, interestingly enough, was selected from mature grasslands with dense root systems that held together over time. These days, modern builders often use fast-grown lumber and chemically treated products that, honestly, degrade unpredictably. Maintenance was, cyclical and incremental, not reactionary. Viking roofs did not require replacement because, they were never allowed to fail catastrophically. Small turf repairs, bark patching or board adjustments were performed as part of seasonal routines. Damage was visible and accessible. Modern roofs, by contrast, often hide failure behind layers of insulation and drywall until eventually replacement becomes unavoidable. The roof was treated as a living system rather than a disposable component. Viking roofs changed with the seasons. Turf grew, dried, and regenerated. Moisture levels fluctuated, and the roof adapted without breaking down. The roof was treated as a living system rather than a disposable component. Viking roofs changed with the seasons. Turf grew, dried, and regenerated. Moisture levels fluctuated, and the roof adapted without breaking down. Modern construction often seeks static perfection, which fails under real-world variability. Applying Viking philosophy means accepting movement, moisture variation, and aging as normal processes and designing roofs that accommodate them gracefully. You can actually build Viking-inspired roofs today without abandoning modern tools. The principles, they translate directly. Use layered assemblies instead of just a single membrane. Increase mass where possible. Always design for airflow and drying. Choose materials that age well, rather than trying to resist aging entirely. Simplify roof shapes. And, plan for maintenance instead of ignoring it. Whether you're building a homestead, a survival retreat, or a long-term dwelling, these steps, honestly, can dramatically extend your roof's lifespan. Viking roofs lasted because, quite simply, they were designed for centuries, not just decades. They assumed storms would come, materials would age, and of course maintenance would be necessary. By designing for those realities, Viking builders created roofs that, well, rarely needed replacement. In a world that's increasingly concerned with resilience and longevity, their approach remains, without a doubt, one of the most effective ever developed. If you value historical engineering that still outperforms modern systems when conditions turn harsh, subscribe to Echoes of Valor. Share this with fellow history enthusiasts and builders, and help preserve the knowledge that once kept Viking settlements standing through centuries of brutal weather.